Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner, and today is stage 2 of the UAE Tour. Now, today is a team time trial event at the UAE Tour after yesterday's flat finishing sprint stage. We saw 12 riders come to the line on yesterday's stage with Tim Miller and Caleb Ewan coming through with a bike throw at the line and a shadow deciding who won yesterday's stage. They gave it to Tim Miller. Now with the team time trial, I got to tell you guys, I was a bit of a knucklehead because it wasn't until just before I went to bed last night that I realized today's stage 2 was a team time trial, not an individual time trial. To be fair, I looked at the course profile a few days ago and just saw stage 1, saw stage 2 as an individual time trial, the way I saw it, and then a couple mountain stages following that. So last night, just before I went to bed, I'm sitting there on Cycling News and I'm reading about tomorrow's race here at UAE Tour and talking about it being a team time trial, and I thought it was a misprint until I went and looked. So I went to bed happy last night because an individual time trial out in the middle of the desert wasn't going to be too exciting to watch. But a team time trial, that's a whole nother ballpark because that means the speeds are going to be incredibly high. And it means with all the crosswinds and the TT equipment, things could get pretty dangerous out there if you're not careful with a couple 180 hairpin turns on today's course and then a couple bridges that if the crosswind's just right might cause some chaos out there. Now I want to give a little heads up to some of the mechanics and the staff of the teams out there, because when you're flying over for a team time trial and you don't have your bus there, you don't have your Mack truck there, you got to break down TT bikes and team race bikes, spare wheels. They even brought the ice vests. Some of the teams out there, I saw them warming up at the beginning of the race here with ice vests on, and the warm-up area, you're just talking about a tent overhead, some vans stuck there, and you see the riders stretching on the floor trying to get warmed up, and everyone warming up underneath the tent. I can't believe they actually brought ice vests to the UAE Tour, but it is a World Tour event, so you got to do what you can because this is a big-time race that's worth a lot of UCI points. Remember those small teams like Jaco Alalula that were fighting for staying in the World Tour last year and fighting throughout the whole season, so they want all the points they can. So keep that in mind when you're watching today's race. But the first team to go off is the UAE team, and of course this is the UAE Tour. They disappointed on yesterday's stage when Adam Yates couldn't follow that split, and it was Plapp from Ineos along with Olaf Koy from Jumbo-Visma that were the last two riders of bridge across as the gap opened up there to Adam Yates. Now with UAE Team Emirates going up the road here, starting off early, they're a big-time favorite for some of the commentators at GCN. But I'm thinking UAE, I don't see how this team's going to win today's team time trial, not individual time trial, on today's race after the performance I saw yesterday. Now, they do got some strong guys, but remember, you got guys going down, getting caught up in the crash yesterday, like Marc Soler and stuff. And then, of course, Brandon McNulty wasn't really up there in that big split. And, of course, we saw Stegard get lost there when the real split of 13 riders were going up the road. He couldn't close the gap. Björk couldn't close the gap, who's normally a time trial specialist. And Adam Yates definitely is not here on his top form. So these guys go off, but they set the fastest time on today's course at 18 minutes and 33 seconds. Now, we start seeing some other teams going off, and it's Alpecin de Koenig that are running Jason Osborne that's running up the stairs to the ramp because he's late to show up for his team time trial event. Now, when he gets up there, his teammates right next to him on the left, he's all the way second to the furthest on the left, gives a little punch there to say, let's get this thing rolling just before they roll off. So he did make the time start. But the only thing I'm thinking that could cause a rider to miss the team time trial event, because it's not an individual time trial like I thought it was. And when it's a team time trial event, these guys all warm up together like we see them in the paddock, and then they're going to leave more or less together as the mechanics are just one by one getting each bike off the trainer. They'll roll over to the start together. So I don't know how Jason Osborne could miss the start unless he had some kind of mechanical problem right before, or of course he was really nervous, which is what will happen at these team time trial events. Maybe he had to do a bathroom run, nature break, something like that, and that got him late in there. But anyways, he made it. They leave off the ramp. When they come through with their time, they're just too far down to make a real threat at the run here for the stage victory here at stage 2 of UAE Tour. But it was an interesting start for Alpecin on today's stage 2. Now, we see it's EF Education that's flying off the ramp. They're going to set a blistering time and come through the first time check at 6.8 kilometers, 16 seconds up on UAE Team Emirates. Now, if they can keep their team together all the way for the second half of this race, 17-kilometer total distance here on today's stage 2, they can take the hot seat away from UAE Team Emirates. And we all know when you're sitting on the Chesterfield, EF Education always surprising big-time stage races when it comes to the team time trial. So they're flying hard. They're coming out of the last corner. As they come out of the hard U-turn just before we're about 1.5 kilometers to go, they're accelerating hard. They'll lose one rider out the back, but they'll go all the way to the line today to take the hot seat 15 seconds faster than UAE Team Emirates. Now, we'll see a couple more bobbles at the start leaving for Intermarché, but their time's not going to be too spectacular when they finish anyways. And we'll see that with DSM with just a little bit of a bobble, but then DSM get on the gas and they start accelerating fast. Now, when DSM come to the finish line, they're 9 seconds down on EF Education, but they're up on UAE Team Emirates, so Emirates is getting dropped further down. EF Education staying up on top. So EF Education going to start celebrating while they're sitting in the hot seat. Next team to leave the ramp, Jayco Alalula, they're doing a fantastic job, and they're doing a big-time threat to win here at Stage 2 of UAE Tour as they cross the line 4 seconds down on EF Education. This was a nail-biter coming into the last corner because they were still had a solid shot at winning today's stage. You see one of their riders is still in the TT position as they're flying around that corner before he comes out just as they start to sprint going into the line and come up 4 seconds short of EF Education. Now with that, again, EF Education's getting excited. You see everybody pumping and high-fiving and waving to the camera and stuff. They're all getting excited because we're getting a reduced number of teams left to leave the ramp here. So that means EF Education still got a shot at winning today's Stage 2. Now, next up on the ramp, Team Ineos. They had a solid ride yesterday with Luke Plapp being in that group of 13. So they're trying to win general classification here with Luke Plapp. When everybody leaves the ramp solid together as they get off, it's Luke Plapp that's leading the way into the first right bend, and he'll pull just a little bit further, real strong, and then he'll pull solid way off to the left side of the road. Now, I don't like this tactics when it comes to the team time trialing or when it comes to the pace line at the front of any one-day race that I'm doing or stage race I'm doing with a bunch of guys, because when you pull all the way off, nobody's helping each other get a draft. The rider in the front, at this moment, Luke Plapp pulling all the way off to the left. He's way out there getting solidly in the wind, and then the next rider up from Ineos is solid in the wind. I prefer Luke Plapp to pull off a little bit closer to one side depending on which way the wind is blowing. If he's pulling off to the left, you pull off just with a little bit of space so the next guys can start rotating through. Got to be a little careful if the guys are lined up. But if the wind is blowing from left to right, which should be the reason why I pulled off that way, all the guys behind him, the 6 riders, should be lined up like this, which means Luke Plapp should have a solid line to just drift back closely. This will allow Luke Plapp to get a little bit of a draft off of the 6 riders and not lose so much speed when he drops off to the side. For some reason, marginal gains has never been accounted for when it comes to riders just swinging way out there to the oblivion, to space out there, and then coming back in hard. It's much like a track race event. Now, in the track, I would assume they do it because they go up the embankment, lose speed because they have fixed gears, and then come slot back down and gain speed as they're coming back down to get onto the tail end of the group. But I'm not a track rider, so I couldn't tell you for sure. But I can tell you for sure it doesn't work in the team time trial or any road race event I've ever been in or training ride I've ever been in. It always makes sense to stay closer to the group, drop back to the side. It's just like when you're on the highway passing those Mack trucks and you feel that draft pick in because the front truck's always pushing the wind. So as the group of 6 is pushing more wind than the one rider by himself. For some reason though, lots of teams, if not every team out there, has a rider that always swings white. Now Ineos is putting on a solid time. They'll come through the first time check 7 seconds down on EF Education. This means they got some time to make up, and at 17 kilometers, it's not giving them a whole lot of distance with only 10K left in the race to make up 7 seconds. They're still staying solid together. They'll come out of the final hard U-turn bend with about 1.5 kilometers to go. They'll lose at least one rider before we come into the final turn to the sprint finish. Now we'll see Luke Plapp. He's solidly sprinting all the way to the finish, and they'll come up 1 second short of the time of EF Education's 18 minutes and 18 seconds. But But let me remind you guys, Luke Plapp was in that group of 13 yesterday, so he's in the hot seat to take the GC Leaders jersey at the end of today's stage if the next team, Bahrain Victorious, and the team after that, Quick Step, can't dislodge them in this next 17 kilometers. Now, Bahrain Victorious looks solid when they leave the ramp, and remember, they had 4 guys in yesterday's break of 13, so this team should be able to put on some kind of show for Pello Bilbao to stay up there on the general classification and fight for the overall, and to keep their other guys up there for a possible shot at winning today's Stage 2 team time trial. They're going solid on the pedals, but they'll lose 11 seconds at the first time check, and then they're going to have to make up time just like Ineos in front of them did. When they come across the line, they're 3 seconds in third place right now on today's stage, behind EF Education. Now, we got one last team out there, and it's my favorite pick for today's race to win the stage and win the overall classification if I really want to go deeper here at the UAE Tour, because Remco Evenepoel is on flying form. Bert van Leeuwenberg was in that front group, and of course Tim Miller won yesterday's stage if you want to give it to him over Caleb Ewan. I call it a split in hairs, but Tim Miller is the official winner, so they had 3 guys in that front group. And leaving the ramp all the way on the right side is Remco Evenepoel. He's the current road world champion, so he doesn't have his rainbow striped jersey on because we're in the TT. But he'll lead off the ramp. He'll go into the first right turn. Remco Evenepoel will do a solid 58 seconds on the front before he pulls off hard left into oblivion again, which I don't like. But like I said, all the teams do it. Next up, coming through, the next 6 riders, they're all pulling strong with Remco Evenepoel, and they're keeping their whole team together. At the first time check, though, they're 10 seconds back on EF Education. Now, everybody's been back on EF Education, but has gained some time, but nobody's been capable of quite gaining 10 seconds. Now we're 10 seconds back here for Quick Step, and they got some time to make up. But remember, they got Remco Evenepoel, is all I'm thinking, sitting on the Chesterfield. And at every stage race I saw through last year's 2022 season, it's Remco Evenepoel doing the last 4K, pulling for 3 kilometers and blowing the field up and normally gaining 20, 30 seconds on half the peloton back there. So can he gain 10 here in 10 kilometers of the end of the team time trial event at the UAE Tour? I don't know, but they look fantastic. I'm flying, going 70 kilometers an hour in the tailwind sections. Just before the last U-turn, we'll see Peter Siri drop off the back. Now, this is the MO that a lot of the team time trials specialists like to do. They sell out before the hardest points. Siri swings off the back. They go into the next U-turn, the last 1.5 kilometers to go. And up front, just before 1K, guess what? It's the race leader at the UAE Tour, Tim Miller, that's on the front. He'll do a big pull that'll get him to about 1 kilometer to go. He'll swing off hard to the left, and he'll wave to his teammates, good luck, guys. Next guy doing a big-time pull, Bert van Leeuwenberg, will pull until he's done. He'll swing off hard right to the fencing. Now there's 4 guys left with Remco Evenepoel. He's got 3 teammates, 4 total, and they got to have 4 to cross the line if they want any shot at winning today's Stage 2 of UAE Tour. They come out of the last turn. They still got enough time at the last right-hand bend to go into the finish and win today's race, but they got to be solid. We see Remco Evenepoel at the front. His teammates are all pushing up as close as they can because it's the 4th rider's time across the line that's going to decide who wins today. With a bike throw at the line, they win today's Stage 2 by 1 second over EF Education, who now on the camera, they're not celebrating anymore. They got little tears back there as they lose today's Stage 2 by 1 second to Quick Step's Remco Evenepoel, train all the way into the finish. Now, we got to talk about the tactics from Quick Step because they only finished with 4 riders. And remember, they were willing to give up the race leader's jersey here with Tim Miller selling out all the way to 1 kilometer to go. Bert van Leeuwenberg was the last rider to drop off, but Peter Siri dropped off about 2 kilometers, far right around 14, 16 minutes into the race. And so with that tactic of losing 3 riders and pulling 100% and giving up the race leader's jersey, they win today's Stage 2 by 1 second. But guess what? They don't get the race leader's jersey because Luke Plapp went in today's stage with a 3-second advantage, and they're basically tied on time. Well, I got to assume it's just the half seconds that gives the race leader's jersey to Luke Plapp from Team Ineos, the young Australian rider. Congratulations. You made the break yesterday with a group of 13. You pulled your team incredibly strong throughout today's race. And now you're wearing the race leader's jersey here at a World Tour event against Remco Evenepoel and a host of other quality riders like Adam Yates, Pale Bilbao, which Bahrain Victorious did a solid job of finishing close enough to keep Pale Bilbao up there on the general classification. So we still got the 3 riders from yesterday. Remco Evenepoel tied on time with Luke Plapp, who's leading for GC, and Pale Bilbao out there to keep an eye on. Now, when we're talking about Adam Yates and UAE Team Emirates, they lost time on today's stage and just basically lost massive amounts of time, plus the minute they lost on yesterday. So UAE Team Emirates are going to have the crying game after today's race, because it doesn't look like they got much of a shot unless the cross wins, and the crosswind gods are going to come into play in these next later stages at the UAE Tour. Make sure you guys like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next Butterfly Effect real soon.